Hey guys, welcome to World Chess Championship 2010, Game 7 played between Anand and Topalov and Anand. The scores currently are 3.5 points for Vishy and 2.5 points for Topalov. Again, this is the Game 7. And if you're wondering why these two players are standing, then it is in the memory of Florencio Campomenes, who was the former FIDE president. And also I have another picture from the game where Anatoly Karpov, who was present during Game 7, he made the first ceremonial move. So that was pretty cool. And the move he made for Anand, who has the white pieces, was d4. And now we get knight to f6 in response and c4. We get e6 and knight to f3. We get d5, which is the queen's gambit declined, and knight it's just g3, trying to fianchetto the bishop on g2, and again a Catalan opening, and the Catalan bishop is going to be alive. So we have bishop to b4 check, and this was all played by these two guys in their previous game, and we have bishop to d2, which was also played in that game. Bishop to e7, now retreating the bishop, and bishop to g2, again fianchetto, and this Catalan bishop, the Catalan opening, is now on the board. We have castles by black, and Anand also castles. Now we have c6, again preventing any attacks on this piece, and then you're going to get this captures here. So we have bishop to f4 first, attacking this knight here, but just simply putting this bishop on a nice diagonal, getting some more control over the e5 square, which is what you always want. This e5 square is really important in the Catalan opening, where you have this bishop. So d takes c4, and now knight to e5, just developing this knight, putting some pressure on this pawn. We have b5, this is an improvement from previous game, and looks like Topalov studied this move. Now this pawn is weak, and if you get knight captures and knight captures, let's just show it to you because this was played in the game and it's pretty exciting. Knight captures c6, knight captures c6, and bishop captures c6. See, now it's this bishop, amazing Catalan bishop, is eyeing this diagonal. And the next move, it's going to capture this bishop, which is why I keep saying whenever white plays the Catalan opening, you have to try and get this bishop, get this rook out of bishop's attack, the rook on a8. Just like in this game, bishop to d7, now threatening to capture here, but bishop is simply going to capture the rook. And there is nothing black can do about this. Well, if he could have moved his rook to b8, but that's not what Topalov chose. Looks like Topalov was prepared for this variation. Bishop takes a8, now queen takes a8, and now queen is controlling this beautiful diagonal, but the queen will eventually move, and it has to keep an eye on other things in the game. And this bishop can come to this one of these two squares, any of these four squares actually, and then control this diagonal. So f3, immediately stopping any of the control of this h file. Now we get knight to d5, attacking this bishop, trying to get rid of the second bishop, the only bishop that Anand has. And then Topalov will have two bishop against a single knight because he gave up his knight. Anand gave up his knight. So we'll see what happens. We have bishop to d2, just retreating and not allowing the capture to happen. We get e5, finally pushing this pawn and attacking this e4 pawn. Now e4 and bishop to h3, again a wonderful bishop move. Now it's attacking this rook here and asking Anand, what do you want to do? Do you want to capture here, or should I just you're going to move the rook, since I'm going to capture this rook on my next move? And when you look at this position, a pretty complicated position, we have a lot to think about. And Anand lost probably or spent probably 40 minutes or so that he had, and Topalov on the other hand had spent just like a couple of minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes from his clock. So it was definitely that Topalov was completely prepared for this game, and this is the first time in the tournament, in this championship, that Anand has been caught off guard during the initial opening phase. After this, we have E captures D5 and saying, okay, if you want to capture my rook, that's fine, I'm just going to give back the exchange and we'll have a nice game. Bishop captures F1 and now Queen captures F1. E captures D4. Now look at this pawn structure, amazing pawn structure that black got, but white has a nice pass pawn. It's unlikely that it's going to be pushed anytime soon since you have a bishop that's controlling it. The rook can come to D file and control it. So for now it's going to stay there. We have A4. Immediately trying to break this pawn structure as it's a pretty strong pawn structure. And we have Queen takes D5, now eliminating this pawn. A takes B5 and Queen takes B5. Topalov doesn't really mind having these beautiful pawns. One of them is a pass pawn, and on move 19 he already has a pass pawn in the game on the 4th rank, so it's really close to queening, but it's not that easy since Anand has an entire piece. But this piece has not moved, and this rook now is attacking the A7 pawn. So let's see what happens. Rook takes A7, since the pawn is just hanging, why not pick it up, and rook to E8. Now controlling the second open file that's on the board. Since white is controlling one file, black is controlling the other. He will control the other once this bishop moves. Now we get king to H1, and this was the first real think of Topalov, because he spent almost 15 to 20 minutes thinking about his next move, because there are various options. What happens if you push the pawn? What happens if you push this pawn? What do you want to do with this queen? Your bishop is attacked. What do you want to do with this bishop? Where do you want to play it? There are so many squares that this bishop could go to. And do you want to move the king closer, just getting in support, and then you can move this rook? Finally, a lot to think about. So after some 15 minutes of spending time here on this position, Topalov plays bishop to F8. And this is pretty amazing. Even though the queen captures B2 was also a possibility, and let's show you what happens, but this is much better for Topalov because queen captures B2 will lead to a definite draw. And here is what happens. If you get, instead of playing this bishop back to F8, if we have queen captures B2, then queen to E1, now attacking this piece twice, and H6, saying if you captures, that's fine, I'm just going to get captures here. Then you queen captures, and you can either capture this knight or capture this bishop, to whatever you want to do. Not really the bishop, because the queen will be hanging, so you have to capture the knight. We get rook takes E7, that's exactly what would have happened. Rook takes E7, queen takes E7, and now queen to B1 with check. You have to get out of this check, and bishop to E1. Now this is a solidifying position. Even though black has two pass pawns, it is not clear how he is going to push those forward, because here is what happens. Queen to D1, now getting closer, trying to push this pawn. It's not that easy. Queen to E8 check first, now king to H7, and queen to E4 check. We get G6, now king to G2, finally getting out of the way. And now if you push, I'm just going to play either bishop captures or just put or just go here and try to attack this piece and try to get a perpetual. This is leading to a draw. C3 now pushing. We have F4 and C2 pushing even further. Now we get queen to E7, And you can even bring another queen into the game by pushing c1 pawn to c1 and getting a queen. But now all white is going to do is queen to f7 with check. And now there is nothing you can do, even though you have two queens on the board. This is completely drawn position. And why is it drawn? Because there is nothing you can do. You have to move your king. Only possible position is the h8 square. So that's what you do. King to h8. Now the queen will deliver continuous checks, and you have to. It will be a draw by threefold repetition. I'm going to show it to you. Queen to f8 check. King to h7. Queen to f7 check. King to h8 and queen to f8 check. After king to h7, this is draw by threefold repetition. There is nothing you can do, even if you have two queens, a pawn, pass pawn. It's all drawn endgame. So none of that was played. Instead, bishop to f8 was played, which means that Anand cannot go for a draw. But this is slight advantage for Anand. And here is why. Rook to c7 now. I'm trying to go after this pawn. So if you push it, then I have a nice rook here that is supporting the push. You should always put your rooks behind your pass pawn or in front of or behind your opponent's pass pawn, so you can attack. Depending on the position, obviously, in some cases you want to put your rook exactly in front of the pawn because you are blocking the pawn from moving forward and you're attacking it simultaneously. But in such kind of positions, it's better to just keep supporting it from behind. So d3 now. Trying to push the second pass pawn that he has. This is not really a pass pawn. This is not really a pass pawn. This is. So he wants to try and push it. We have bishop to c3. Now still guarding this d2 square, so you cannot push the pawn, and you cannot push this pawn because obviously there is a piece in front of it. So bishop to d6. Now trying to get this bishop into the game and attacking this rook. Rook to a7 and h6. Now knight to d2, and here Anand is finally going into a deep thought and is blocking these two pawns from moving any further. And this is a completely drawn position with a slight advantage for black, but it's not enough to convert to a win. Maybe an engine would be able to convert it to a win, but a human will certainly not. So after knight to d2, there has to be a way to get this knight off of here and try to push this pawn. And here is how Topalov does it. An amazing move was bishop to b4. Now attacking this bishop, and obviously if you move the bishop, you're going to capture this piece here. So what do? Rook to a1 is what Anand played. Now if you capture, I'm just going to get pawn captures, and at least one pawn is blockaded this way. So that's exactly what happens. Bishop captures c3, b captures c3. Now these two pawns are staring at each other. There is nothing either of the pawn can do. And now you have to get this knight out of here, and there is something you have to do. If not, your pawn will never be able to go ahead. So for the moment, this knight is behaving as a blockading piece. We have rook to e2 now attacking this knight, and rook to d1 simply defending. Queen to a4 and knight to e4. Now you will see a lot of maneuvering. This is what grandmasters do. They maneuver a lot of pieces and they eventually get to a position where either they can win or force a draw. So queen to c2, getting closer to the game and also keeping an eye on this pawn. If the knight moves from here, say if you play this and the knight moves, then you can immediately capture this pawn. But it's not that easy. He can just put rook here and rook to c1 and defend it, and you also attack the queen. So rook to c1 was played, attacking the queen, also indirectly defending the pawn. Rook takes h2 with check, since this pawn was hanging and he has some time. King to g1. Now you get rook to g2 check, and queen captures g2. Anand decide I want to get these rooks off the board, which will make it easier for me to defend against these two pawns. So queen captures c1 with check, and now queen to f1. Queen to e3 again with check, queen to f2, queen to c1, and queen to f1 again. Queen to e3, and here if Anand wanted to, he could have repeated this move, queen to f2, and it would have been a perpetual after three perpetual moves basically, and it would have been a drawn position. But here Anand thinks that he definitely has this position under control, and he can push for a win. He just thought that, okay, if I can hold on for a little bit longer, since I have an extra piece on the board, I will try to push this for a win. So he doesn't allow the perpetual checks, and he definitely wants to try something different. So after this he goes king to g2, and now Topalov is worried because he thought that this was a draw, and what is Anand thinking here? Because Topalov is the one who said no for Sophia rule, which means the players cannot offer the opponent a draw, but they can draw by perpetual. So he was a little bit confused, but obviously you have to keep playing, so he kept playing f5. Now trying to get this knight away from the defense of this pawn. We get knight to f2, now blockading any checks, especially this one, and king to h7, just trying to get king closer to the game. Queen to b1, now Anand is trying to find a nice way to attack. Since this knight covers this d1 square perfectly, you don't really have to worry about this queening. And if you simply attack this pawn that you have, Anand can definitely come to one of these two squares and easily defend the pawn, these three squares. So Anand is like, fine, let me go for a nice walk, and let's see if I can attack with my queen here, the queen walk. So queen to e6, and now queen to b5. We have g5 and g4. Here Anand is excited to push the pawns and go for a win, but he still has just one minor piece, and it's not clear how can he win. But still he's trying something. F takes g4, and king to g6. Again, a great opportunity for you guys to pause the video for the first time in such a wonderful game and try to find the winning combination for Anand. It's the engine shows plus 1.4, and this is a wonderful engine line. So let me give you a hint. Vishwanathan Anand was not able to find this because it is an engine line. It's really complicated. But if any one of you was able to find it, you guys are just amazing. I mean, you should go and attend some tournaments and start winning games. For the rest of us, I'm just going to show you what happens after king to g6. We have queen to a4, and now queen to d5 check. First, we get king to f1 and queen to e6, queen to d1, queen to e5, and queen to d2, just defending this pawn. King to f7, getting the king closer, knight to d1, and king to e6. Queen to b2, queen to f4 check, and now knight to f2. King to f7, and queen to b7 with check. King to g8, king to g2, and d2, finally trying to push and trying to create something. But this square is perfectly covered, and you don't really have to worry as black. Queen to d5 check. Finally, you are going after both of these pawns, and Topalov cannot keep protecting both these pawns. King to h7, queen to f3, trying to get both the queens off the board, but black cannot afford to do this, because once you get rid of the queens, then you have a knight, and king is going to just march up the board, eat up this pawn, then again go back and eat up this pawn, and then finally start pushing this pawn to victory. So you have to decline the queen trade, and queen to d6, declining the trade. Now look, you cannot keep an eye on both the pawns, and here is how Anand takes this attack. Anand should have taken is queen to e4, finally giving a check and opening an attack on this piece. King to g7, not immediately capturing, but first knight to d1. You have to blockade this piece, because if not, if you now capture, all black is going to do is just get a queen into the game, and once you capture it with your knight, which you have to, then just queen captures this knight, and then it's completely drawn again. We have king to f8, and now finally queen takes c4, and you have a passed pawn here. So what are you going to do? Queen to e5, not allowing the king to enter the game, and queen to f1 with check. King to e8, queen to d3, going after this pawn now, and there is no stopping it now. Queen to e1. For now you have some defenses, but not for too long. Again, knight to f2, keeping an eye on this square. King to e7 and king to f3, getting the king closer. King to f7, there is nothing black can do, black can just wait, and now c4. Finally you have your own pass pawn that you can push, and this queen eventually has to give up defending this d1 square and has to go after this pawn. There is nothing black can do about this, as because of this wonderful piece that you have, you can protect this d1 square. And this was the line that Anand was trying to find, but he couldn't, unfortunately, because it's you have to calculate 18, 19 moves, and it's pretty crazy to calculate such lines. Even for a grandmaster, it's not possible. So none of this was played. After king to g6, if you remember this position, now queen to b7 was played, and Anand is still trying to squeeze in something, but he doesn't know it yet, but it's all over. It's just a complete draw. We have d2. Since you have a pass pawn, you have to push it, get it as close to this d1 square as possible. Now this knight cannot move, or if it wants to move, it can go to d1. That's it. Queen to b1 check. Now again keeping an eye on this d1 square, and king to g7. King to f1, trying to improve the king's position, but there is nothing he can do. I mean, this is completely drawn. Queen to e7, king to g2, queen to e6, queen to d1, lot of queen maneuvering, queen to e3, queen to f3, and again here she offers an exchange for exchange of the queens, hoping that Topalov makes a blunder and gets queen captures. Then you're just going to get king captures, go after these two pawns, and this king is too far away to create any trouble. But Topalov declines it and says queen to e6. I'm just going to play here, and what are you going to do? Now queen to b7 check, king to g6, b1 check, king to g7, queen to d1, queen to e3, again repeating some moves, queen to c2, queen to e2, queen to a4 now, going to the other side of the board, king to g8, queen to d7, not allowing the king to enter this file, and king to f8, queen to d5, now attacking this piece, also keeping an eye on this d1 square, but this queen can never really capture, because then you get knight captures. I mean, first black is going to push this pawn, then you get knight captures, and queen captures, you lose your knight. You don't really want to do that. King to g7, king to g3, queen e3 check, queen to f3, and queen to e5 check. So once they both realize that this is not leading anywhere, it's going to be a draw. After king to g2, queen e6 and queen to d1, this was the final position on the board as both players agreed to a draw. As this is not going anywhere, you can make 50 queen moves if you want, and then eventually it's going to be a draw. So an exciting draw where Anand had a slight chance, but because it was an engine line, he couldn't really find it. And finally, after this game, we have 4 points for Anand and 3 points for Topalov. So Anand is still leading by a point. And that's all from Game 7. Game 8 is again a pretty exciting game. So till then, namaste. See you next time.